Alright everyone, so this is going to be an overview of my CSL DD settings used mostly for drifting in Assetto Corsa and why the settings are the way that they are. I'm not like an expert in force feedback or anything like that. These are just the settings that I found worked well for me and the cars I drive in the game and the way everything's set up. I suggest trying these, trying any other settings you find online, and tweak and adjust and figure out what works best for you and the cars that you drive. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, I just want to add also that this is just for the 8nm boost kit. If you don't use the boost kit, these might not work for you. I don't really know. It could get weird. We're going to start with the Fanatec control panel. The maximum steering angle is going to be auto, and we're going to set the steering angle in the Assetto Corsa settings a little bit later. Alright, the next setting is the overall force feedback strength. We're going to leave this at 100%, so it's getting all the strength from the game. And you're just going to want to adjust the force feedback strength like per car in the game, like when you're loaded up in the car doing the setup and all that stuff. Set the force feedback strength in the car. I usually run 70 to 75% depending on the car. So the next one is force feedback scaling. I tried peak, and then the other option is linear. Linear felt kind of weird to me. I wasn't really liking it, so just leave it on the default peak. Alright, so the next few settings really affect the way the wheel like spins and oscillates. Like you want it to still spin fast but not oscillate, and these are the settings that really help control that. So it really helps have like smooth transitions and smooth initiations and all that stuff. And the first one is natural damper. I put it at 35%. A lot of people will run way lower, but I thought it oscillates too much, so 35 is kind of a good balance between having low oscillation but also spinning fast enough. I tried, turning it up really high to like 55 and stuff, but it just made it too slow and wouldn't spin fast enough to keep up with the car. So 35 is where I landed. Alright, so with natural friction, it's just sort of adding resistance to the wheel. From my understanding, this is something you want to at least have a little bit of with any direct drive wheel. So I just run 10%. I don't think you need to run a whole lot. Some people run way less. I think at one point I had it at like 5 or 3 or something. It's pretty subtle. It's not like a huge thing, but it kind of helps reduce the oscillation slightly, but there's not like a huge impact with this one. Natural inertia helps further reduce the oscillations that are still present after you set the damper and friction settings like this. But the great thing is that it helps reduce oscillations, but it doesn't slow the wheel down like increasing the damper would. Like you can increase the damper super high, take out the oscillations, but then it slows the wheel down. Inertia helps reduce the oscillations further, but without slowing the wheel down. I have it set at 43. You can turn it down lower. Same with damper. You can turn both of them down lower, and the wheel will feel more responsive, but will have more oscillations. And you can turn inertia up even higher, and it'll be even smoother. But I found 43 to be a good balance. Like I had it just before I recorded this video. I started experimenting with the settings some more and turned it up even higher, and it kind of made initiations feel weird. If you do like a big like flick initiation, it felt kind of weird with the inertia too high. So 43 is where I landed, where it still felt good, still felt pretty smooth. Yeah, this is where I like it. Both of these are used to sort of control the harshness, I guess, of the forces on the wheels. So like hitting bumps and dropping tires and stuff like that. You can kind of think of them as like filters almost. If they're not filtering out very much, then the forces feels somewhat artificial, I guess. Like feels like pingy kind of. If you turn force effect intensity all the way down, I think it goes off, it'll have more oscillation, so definitely run some of that. These are the values I landed on. It feels pretty good right here. Alright, so these next 3 settings, I'm just using the recommended Fanatec settings. Force effect strength, you want that at 100, just like up above where we have overall strength. And then spring effect, I messed with that a little bit. I didn't feel anything in the game at all from that. Same with damper. I didn't really notice anything with that, but all 3 of these are just using the recommendations from Fanatec, so it seems to work. Go to settings, Assetto Corsa, controls, and axis. And the first one is going to be the degrees. We're going to set this to 1080. So this controls, how many rotations the wheel does to go lock to lock. So like competition style drift cars and drift cars with big angle kits usually are set up with around 1080 degrees of rotation in real life. So that's how I like to use this wheel. The CSL DD can totally keep up with a 1080 degrees of rotation, no problem, even with all the damper and inertia and stuff that we said earlier. If you want to do like a normal road car, maybe 900 would be better. Some people run less rotation in real life, allegedly. But yeah, 1080 is what I like. And that's where I set it. I feel like it's a little more smooth. All right, all these next settings, I just left at the default value. You don't really need to mess with any of these. So on the force feedback tab, the first one we're going to look at is gain. This will be on a 100%. And then, like I said before, we'll just set the force feedback in car, in the game, when you're like loaded in. I usually set that to 70 to 75% in car, in the game, not here. So this is 100. So the next few settings are just gonna be the default 0 or off. We don't really need any of these. And then the effects, they're not really going to affect the way the car drives, but they're kind of fun to mess with. Like slip effect feels kind of cool. It makes the wheel kind of vibrate a little bit when you're doing a sick burnout, or curbs. If you want to feel the curb a little better, sometimes that's kind of helpful to help know where the car is. Enhanced understeer effect. I don't like this at all. It feels super weird to me, so leave it off. All right, so soft lock on. For me, this one I feel is absolutely critical to drifting in Assetto Corsa. If you have it off and the steering rotation set to 1080 degrees, which you will see here, you'll end up with a gigantic dead zone at the end of the steering lock where the wheel doesn't do anything. And then you can reduce it, the rotation to 900, and it makes the dead zone smaller, but the dead zone is still present. But the downside to soft lock, which you'll see in this clip, is at full lock it kind of bounces, which is more annoying than anything. It's not gonna make you spin out or anything, but it's definitely jarring the first time you experience it. But at first I was super annoyed with it, but over time I got used to it. It's not so bad anymore, but it's just something to be aware of, especially if you're watching this video and you have not bought this wheel. I noticed certain cars don't have the bouncy soft lock even with soft lock turned on, which is interesting. Like some of the arch physics replacements or whatever cars, they don't bounce. Interesting. Skip FFB steps, set this to 0. This way you get the full force feedback frequency from the game. So Assetto Corsa's force feedback runs at 333 hertz. If you set skip FFB steps to 1, it'll run at half that. But with a direct drive wheel, you might as well get the full thing. I know with some Thrustmaster TX and stuff, some people run 1, which I guess helps the wheel spin faster, but it might be placebo, I don't really know. With CSL DD, just run at 0. Post-processing, you're just gonna run all these at the default off settings. We don't really need any of these. And then experimental, this is an older system. The ones that we set up in the CSP settings are what is being used now, so you don't need any of these either. So the next settings, we're going to go to the custom shaders patch settings, and then force feedback tweaks, FFB tweaks is what you're looking for. And then just choose active to make sure it's turned on. McPherson strut FFB adjustment. So this only applies to certain cars that are set up for it. So I just have it turned on. More physical accurate gyro implementation, have this active. It's intended for direct drive wheels, but it works great with other belt drive wheels that ran on my Thrustmaster TX. And it just helps, I believe it helps reduce oscillations and makes them run better. Additional post-processing, range compression 100. This is the default setting. We don't really need this with the CSL DD, so just leave it as default. And then output real steering forces to wheel. So I tried this because it has the little note underneath that says it's intended for direct drive wheel users, but I think it's for old-timey cars or something, I don't know. But it didn't really feel great drifting. I would reduce steering feel when you're left foot braking and stuff like that in tandem, and I couldn't feel when the wheels would lock up and stuff. You just lose feel in the front end. So I prefer to have that off. here's a few more laps on Okayama with the Tsuchigiri James Dean replica, just so you can see like some more footage of the wheel in action. And at the end of this lap, I do a little bit of a Manji section with no hands, so you can see how it still slightly oscillates. You could probably tune this out further by just messing with the damper and inertia settings, just to get it to like ultra smooth and there's zero oscillations. But I thought this was a pretty good balance between responsiveness and smoothness. There'll be a link in the description with all these screenshots too. If these settings help you out, let me know, and if you think I'm an idiot and these are the worst settings ever, also let me know. Later.